Welcome, everybody. Today we're going to do some monster head sketching and really look at like the nuts and bolts, sketchy, loose exploration stuff that doesn't get a whole lot of press with like concept art, YouTube videos, or what I always traditionally thought of as concept art. But this is where a lot of the real work happens, a lot of the real value that we provide as as a profession happens with what we can do with just very loose, quick, rough sketches. Kind of that's what like when an art director sees that kind of thing in your portfolio, it sends a lot of good signals. Like this is an artist who can just jam out cool things at a high volume pretty easily. Shows that you're not going to be all precious and everything has to be pixel perfect. So I usually prepare a lot more stuff for a live stream like this, but today I'm kind of planning on scratching around and even struggling or starting over. Like, kind of want you guys to see the warts and all version of how designs like this happen. But it's not just going to be like watch Hardy's struggle show. I also I've learned how to work through that. I've learned how to kind of muscle through the ugly part of a design, and that is what I think like will be really valuable about this is some just tricks on how to shake things up or kind of blow up a design, just be confident in how we can just stretch and redo things and kind of just break through that. I'm also going to take a quick pause just to do a little bit of info and a program tour of my mentorship, Concept Art Academy. Just very briefly, we are enrolling for our session beginning on November 6th, and seats are still available. So if you are interested in that, please let me know, or please ask questions in the chat, or I'll just go ahead and put it out there right now that if you're really considering this, go ahead and email me with any questions you have at office@digitalpaintingstudio.com. I'll ask Celine to paste that into the chat for me. Um, I just want to make sure anybody considering this knows what they're getting and it feels like a comfortable fit. All right. With that, let's dive in. I'm going to share my screen and here we go. Oh, one more thing before I get started is if you are going to Lightbox Expo this weekend and you happen to see me passing you by in a crowd somewhere, please say hi. I'm really excited. It was really fun last year, and if you're not going this year, highly recommended. Cool. All right, here is a sheet of sketches. Actually, this is a little bit more polished than even what I'm going to work on today. But like, this is the kind of rough thing where if a client asks you for just, hey, we need like a stodgy old man vibe alien who looks intelligent, but looks kind of like, I don't know, tired and wise, but also sort of judgy and disdainful. Like that's usually about the brief that I'll have to work with, maybe with some kind of a mood board. Today I want to do something similar but different. Let's just make some like nasty predatory like good old when you think of monster like the thing that is going to come and eat you, right? The very villainous looking bad guy beast. So a good place to start with this is usually with some kind of an animal model. Like what kind of monster? That's usually a good discussion point. Is this like a bird monster? Is it kind of dinosaur-like, dragon-like? Is it like fish monster? Is it humanoid? Sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones that sort of reflect a mirror and there's some horrifying abstraction of human anatomy. So I thought we would try that just to get started. I'll start with one of those more like dinosaur-based dragon-ish monsters just to get started. And I'll sort of talk as I draw here. But the first bit of advice for any of this that I have is to just begin. Like what just happened 20 brushstrokes ago is often the hardest part with this, is to simply stop thinking and to like make your hand do something. I'm trying to like not be precious with lines. I love that term because that's when we are trying to like really start designing by making like beautiful lines. Your stuff is going to be hopelessly stiff and unimaginative when you're trying to make every brushstroke just show, you know, what an art genius you are. It inevitably sucks because you're like so tight that you sort of forget to make shapes with an interesting gesture or, something that feels free and expressive. So I'm going really low flow. This is 1%. I want these lines maybe deliberately to be a little bit ugly because when I'm not afraid of making lines that look messy, that usually means my head is where it should be. I'm thinking about shapes. I'm thinking about the animal model that I'm trying to evoke, and I'm thinking about action lines. That's another like keyword for today is action line, kind of the invisible spine that is flowing through a creature or really anything. A lot of this applies to spaceships and gun designs, even to architecture and character poses. It's kind of gesture drawing in a way. So that's what these first like S curves are trying to really figure out is that general flow. And just with that, as much as I just said how much I wanted to struggle, I'm pretty happy with how this feels as a general sort of lizard or dinosaur type of head, right? Because it's essentially two S's that I just if we just grab the same one and sort of offset them a little bit, we're on our way to a decent action line statement. It's something that's tapering and kind of sharpening as it moves forward, like an arrow or something. All right, so super rough, sketchy lines. We are not worried about our lines looking pretty at this point at all. It's all about shapes and, what can we do here? All right, next, let's start thinking about shape language. So, another uh, golden thing, and I noticed like a few of my Academy current students and alums were in the chat, so they've definitely heard me say this a million times, but shape language consistency is everything. It's like picking a system of shapes and sticking with it will make your design look very professional and very deliberate. We always want these to look like they were decisions that were made thoughtfully and purposefully and not just kind of like whatever. So right now I'm kind of digging this sort of dome head on the back of this, let's call it, I don't know, dinosaur monster. Um, I'm kind of liking that. So I'm going to keep that roundness. It looks like the center of his head is sort of round. I want this angle of his jaw to sort of gel with that. Um, it's a bit of a bold choice because usually angles and triangles and sharpness sort of project like villainy and predator, but I'm just trying this. And again, the whole object today is to just sort of explore and see where things go. Cool. All right. I'm starting to think about the mouth, and that will be a good next point to talk about with creature design, but again, kind of everything is the visual language that we're using and when to go looking for references. So, a lot of times, what goes wrong with a design, or when I see an artist and you can kind of spot when they're relatively inexperienced, you can tell they were just sort of whatever drawing, like I think I saw chompy teeth somewhere, so let's just make some rawr. Chompy teeth. It's sort of like we're drawing with icons. It's like when you were in kindergarten, you drew a spooky monster, and your teacher told you how good it was. You received praise and adulation, and you sort of file that away as that's how you draw scary teeth. And I know that's an oversimplification, but I swear that's not far off from what, for me at least, the way that really happens is, oh, I know how to draw teeth. It's just like this. Knowing when to question yourself about that is, I think, one of the biggest like professionalism indicators is when you as an artist sort of just know that you don't really know everything. Like your visual library is incomplete. And especially for the more experienced artists among us today, even like kind of sure you've been doing this for decades, but knowing that your visual library doesn't just have it all is it's sort of liberating, actually. It's like knowing what you don't know always seems to make your work way better. So that's I've had like, I'm rapid firing the like tricks I want to share, but just go shopping for references and inspiration. And like there might be some kind of way that teeth will interlock together. I jumped back to the Jurassic Park T-Rex because I swear when I was in fifth grade and OG Jurassic Park came out, I swear that was my first ever like design language cue, or like it's the first time I realized, I've been drawing dinosaur mouths wrong the whole time because the T-Rex's mouth was not just like, you know, chompy teeth like Pac-Man. There was this whole elongated M shape to it. It made this like elongated S. And I just found that so fascinating. And that, I drew that T-Rex a million times as a kid, which is probably why that's like a go-to. But the point is like go go looking to expand your visual library. Go looking for those references, go looking for things that you might not have thought of. And it just it's almost like we have to ego check a little bit. I'm speaking to myself here, is just say, hey, dude, you don't know all of this by heart as well as you think you do. So, like, forcing yourself to take that little pause and go see what other things are out there, that has helped me tremendously. Now, like, the longer I do that, the more complete my visual library actually becomes in reality. And the more of these little tidbits, like this cool, disgusting, outwardly flexing kind of tooth pattern, that has sort of ingrained itself as one of my little, maybe this thing would work for this, or sort of like Venus flytrap teeth that are all spindly and gross. So, all right, maybe less talking, more drawing. And actually, while I do that, I haven't really been keeping an eye on the chat, but Celine, are any questions so far?
I think everyone is just so entranced in what you're doing that yeah, nothing yet, but I'm sure
Okay.
it will come.
No, that's exactly what we're aiming for. Let the trance continue. So maybe little like interdigitating teeth, kind of the little chompy kind of catch catch a small prey item thing. Like I don't know. I'm trying to think of like a bird's beak or a type of fish that has this, but this seems to be the kind of tooth that just reaches out, darts out, and grabs onto small things, right? It's like a little Venus flytrap cage. So, not bad, but I don't love it. So since my lines are sketchy and non-precious, I am getting rid of it. So like that's kind of a another reason I think to keep your lines just unlovably ugly in the early going so that you won't feel any attachment to something that you should not yet be attached to, right? We have nothing written in ink yet. This is all very impermanent and loose and disposable. Like we are, this is just for you figuring stuff out and seeing what we can push. Um, so weird how much of this is like a head game and an internal monologue of just hang on a second, we're not ready to make that line pretty yet. I'm sort of detailing these, so it's like, whoop, don't do that. You can't play with that toy yet. We have to figure more stuff out first. That is design in my experience. Huge fork in the road, like inflection point of what this is going to look like. Um, Professionally, kind of a huge surprise to me is how much professional concept art is this and not like Blizzard splash art, which is what I was expecting and which is what I, wanted to do when I set out to be a concept artist a million years ago. This is sort of the value that we provide. And even very recently, what I often, the most common note I feel like I get from clients is this is cool, but it's too tight. Like, let's keep exploring. We're not ready for this yet. And the instinct is to kind of only show clients the really pretty stuff. But what they really need from you and what I think like can make you, can give you job security and help you demonstrate your value, like do all that stuff that makes artists hireable and valuable is kind of just show us the shapes, show us the decisions, show us the ideas, show us like the research and the problem solving. And then once we have that, then, they turn you loose on, okay, now make it beautiful for our pitch deck because, we have investors to impress. But I hear that still. I'm kind of like, I want to report this as like something that I need to hear and something that is a note I still get pretty often is less polished. We don't need this to be like comic book inked. It can just be loose and kind of a little bit unlovable. So like if you find yourself getting really enamored with your lines, that is usually a bit of a pause point because at that point you're not designing anymore. It's like another part of your brain is in the driver's seat. So that eye that I just drew felt kind of like human and um I don't know, a little bit too relatable. So I thought let's dig somewhere else in the visual library and go for a more like chameleon eye, something kind of less sympathetic and less um I don't know, less human and relatable. All
Speaking
right,
of relatable, we've got a couple questions coming in now.
perfect.
Someone asks, how do you think through the pose of the creature slash character design to help display the attitude slash intent you have for the design?
That's a great point. Um, I find that I fall into a few like go-tos for that, especially with a predator. But I guess that sort of answers the question is what is their function and what are we trying to communicate? I think with a predator, we want it to look aggressive or like there's potential energy. So that's something I really like is making a predator's head and neck look like it's coiled up. like it's sort of bent back like a heron or something ready to dart forward. It could go from this to this, and you're more in bite range than you thought you were, that kind of thing. So this sort of S, it's more of like it's like a gesture because he looks sort of relaxed, but if I were to just continue this up a little bit more, it would look like that kind of low hanging heron type of predator pose. So that kind of thing. Um, and again, like animal models are awesome for this. You can go even more rough than this and just try and figure these things out with like little head poses. Um, Really, really cool and easy to figure out. And I think even that has a lot of character and personality, is this little predator kind of staying low, kind of slinking around and ready to spring forward. So that's kind of one of them. Kind of just what's the function? What is the attitude that we're trying to communicate? And just these curves, how the head is being held, the gesture of that, I think speaks a lot of, speaks volumes about that. Another go-to, we can do more of a like horse type of thing, like show horse, like proud dragon type of thing, if we want it to be all regal and impressive. There's that. There is sort of related to that, but kind of like a serpent rearing back, like about to chomp down. Like I think this is a good potential energy one, sort of like this spring. But when we sort of have a C curve ready to just pounce downward. So great question. And it's crazy how much just these initial curves that we make inform all of that. In general, it's some version of an S curve or a C curve. But what I think's most important is how those two lines taper together. That's sort of what sharpens the action line forward. And I think things like predators and spaceships and guns, I think we always want to be sending the eye forward. We kind of want that visual, forward movement, the action line. Good question.
We've got another one. A
Yes.
beginner wants to know, how should new artists approach concepting? Should they start with large finished pieces or practice idea generation through quick thumbnails first?
Uh, Definitely the latter, which is such an unfun answer, right? Because it's like you have to eat your vegetables first kind of answer, but that's totally it. And on the other hand, if you're like excited to take on some big, impressive, like splash art or key shot looking piece, you should absolutely do that. But where the real skills are going to get developed, like where the real forward progress is going to happen, is just the stuff that you learn to do simply with shapes and, this kind of stuff with action lines and learning to like really research and inform your visual library before we just start whatever drawing, kind of trying to pick on the boneyard of our own visual library. Doing that kind of research, I think that is probably the best way to go from like really very beginner with this to stuff that starts having value. I would also point that artist to learning and drilling some shape design fundamentals. We have a version of that in Concept Art Academy. I kind of distilled it down, but all the alums and Academy artists here will know those. But there's like a certain set of just rules that tend to make some shapes work and others don't. All of that stuff exists in books and YouTube videos, so go check out Shape Design Principles, or I would love to teach you that myself if you are up for some mentoring. Great question. Um, I might press ahead and then I will come back to questions. Um, I think I am at a really important point in this one, and I think this might be one of the the main takeaways for this video is the shakeup, the push. Because right now, I'm looking at a pretty competent-ish looking lizard-ish monster. Like, all right, it looks like it could be alive. It's got chompy teeth that remind me of real-world predators. It's got some little beady eyes that are, sort of dinosaur-like or alligator-ish. It's starting to work, and I think the action lines are pretty cool. But we've seen this a million times before, right? I mean, would anybody see this and say, "Oh, that's from that movie, whatever"? Like, it's not memorable. It's not especially dynamic. But that's okay because I plan for this. This is the part of practically every design where let's make a copy of it so that we can be utterly fearless, which is I want to just utterly blow stuff up and make something that is kind of beyond the bounds of what my like own hand would draw. I want to go way beyond that. So the warp tool is amazing for this. You just sort of grab a corner and just stretch the hell out of this and pull on some key feature. Try and like bend it into the action line, but it's crazy how well this works. And I suddenly feel like now I'm onto something kind of interesting. It's this weirdly super flat-headed, more like I don't know, it feels like one of those alligator gar fish with just the long snout. It just feels like so much more of a villain. And then when I go back, I did kind of like this, but often with this little shake up step, the kind of grab it and pull it step when I go back, I'm like, how did I ever like that? Like it looks so boring. Um, so now, and this is true in this case, but almost always, I start seeing new possibilities. It's like, okay, now I'm digging like little flat-headed alligator gar like monster or something. Now it's like this whole new thing. And the best part is, I don't think I ever would have like drawn this with my brush tool. Like my actual hand would never get to this. But if I just sort of draw it the kind of safe, let's go through the steps. Let's have a real world animal model, but you know, let's not stop there. Like I would never get to this, but if I just grab it and stretch it kind of wildly beyond what I think is wise, cool stuff happens. And that might be my favorite thing in art is when I design or draw something that is just like, I didn't know I could do that. And this sort of forces that into being, right? It's a Bob Ross happy accident like button you can press that just makes these things seem to materialize. Um, Not always, but this is a move that I have just grown to utterly rely on, and it works. And it's just a good way to reach for a gear you didn't think you had. I love that. So when our lines are still kind of loose and still rough, that's when we are still like we're feeling unattached to anything. That's when it's time to reach for the warp tool, which just by the way in Photoshop is just Command T for free transform. And then if you hold control, it's one of these little secondary transformers. But I love that. And he's a totally different beastie now. So now I'm starting, I don't know, I feel like I am on to a winner, which is cool. Like the silhouette looks cool. Um, I'm gonna kind of start any questions on any of that while I start dividing some of these interior spaces?
Yeah, I mean, when you did the transform, it is kind of neat how it just looks like it's living from a very dark place now. Like that was really cool to see. Yeah, so we've got a couple more. An artist asks, how do you ground imaginative designs, like adding six arms and real anatomy so they still feel physically possible?
Great question. I use the 80/20 rule for like everything, but I think that's usually a good thing to keep in mind is just let's keep it mostly familiar. Like I'd still say this is quite it's a Komodo dragon in a lot of ways right now. But that's that 80% that is familiar and grounded. That's the perfect word for this. Um, but if we stop there, then it's like boring. Then it's like, well, if this thing could exist in the real world, then what have we, what exactly have we done as a concept artist? So let me think. There's got to be a perfect way to articulate this. We want it to feel plausible, like it could be a living, breathing thing. But if it feels too much like that, then that probably means you haven't done enough of that 20% shakeup. That can often just be adding something. Like I could give this guy some cool little spiky repeating elements. Maybe we'll do that, right? Something to spice it up. Randy Rudicelli shared that term with me. He's an awesome artist. I love that. It's just make it spicier. I think one of his clients told him that. It just, is this cool enough yet? Then push it. I think 80/20 rule is a pretty good um, rule of thumb for that and for like a million other things. But that's a great question.
There's a couple more on the spice factor.
All right, I like it. Bring it on.
So a viewer says they often get stuck deciding where to start a drawing. Should they begin with the head or lay out the full figure first? How do you approach that choice when starting?
Interesting. I've done both. I usually, for a monster, I think the head is going to kind of set the tone for a lot of it. It's sort of where we're going to figure out our shape language. It's where we are going to, um, which animal model are we leaning towards? So I think that's a good place to start, but you don't have to. Um, I've done both. I don't really have a necessarily one is better than the other answer for you. So that's probably not super helpful. But I think you can have success with both, definitely.
Okay. And then the other one is we often hear that shapes communicate personality. So round equals friendly, sharp equals dangerous. How can an artist break through those rules and still make the design work?
Awesome. So you're totally right. That's sort of like shape language, I guess kind of the 101 version, or that's like the Pixar application of that. So um this is basically kind of circle is friendly and feminine or harmless, like a baby or a Volkswagen Beetle or something. Square is stable and dependable, like Optimus Prime or, 90s Superman cartoon where he looked like a walking refrigerator, right? And it can be masculinity. So in Pixar movies like Wally was like a little cube and Eve was this floating oval. They Pixar really knows how to like hit that on the nose to make perfect art school slides about shape language. Up also, Mr. and Mrs. Fredrickson, everything was a square on him, everything was an oval on her. And it's really effective. It kind of gives them all a signature look. And then like triangles are villains, like a great white shark or a fighter jet, or again, any Disney villain with really pointy features and eyebrows like Jafar or something. That's kind of it in a nutshell. What I think this artist is asking, and where I think it gets way more interesting, is it's kind of one of those when do we know the rules to break the rules. And I actually think that is where it starts getting fun. And it's kind of like we use the rules ironically a little bit. Like some of my favorite monsters are almost entirely circles, like even weirdly sort of babyish looking, but there's something horrifying about some other feature, like maybe they have big weird teeth or their eyes are strange, but it's because of the setup of what should be this like harmless baby looking thing. That's what makes it so unbelievably upsetting. So it's sort of like you're approaching this backwards a little bit. It's sort of like I the go-to for a monster, you probably could have success going for triangular to start with, but I'm trying to be sort of round with this guy to see if I can tap into a little bit of that like weirdness, the like doing the opposite of what seems logical just to see what happens there. Um, what else? It's not just like let's do the opposite of what we think, but that's kind of the best way I can think of to break out of that is sometimes we can use those rules or we kind of we choose to do the opposite thing for effect. And it just it's powerful because yeah, we're balancing familiar with something new and kind of upsetting. Um, I have a lot to say about that.
We've got a sort of a question more related to just concept art in general, and maybe it's
Okay.
a kind of go into the academy.
Yeah,
Uh, Someone's asking, when leveling up as an artist, what is the most important art fundamental to learn, or which would you suggest to master first?
that is a good question. I would put equal weight on shape design, and we do exercises for exactly that in our first weeks in the academy with really like it, one of my favorite exercises in week 2 of the academy is to design a pile of rocks, which sounds like the most boring, mundane, and you know, just uninteresting subject possible. But after we drill some shape design fundamentals, it's like incredibly fun and kind of shocking how beautiful and how much personality and how much harmony we can design into a collection of rocks. I think that really, maybe literally the rocks exercise might be the single best way to kind of get shape design principles to just live in your fingertips. That's a really good one. Um, and the other one that I would sort of give equal weight is gesture drawing. Even if you have no interest in drawing people or characters or the human figure side of this, practicing gestures is what makes like really nice S curves sort of live in your fingertips. I love that expression. So those two, I think really for artists of any level, that's kind of the like the push-ups that we should all be doing all the time. It's just a good repetitive, even a little bit mindless thing that we can kind of just do with an iPad when the TV's on, just to kind of build those hand and brain connections. That's a really, really great question. I think those are my two go-tos. Um, let's take a quick pause because I'm kind of starting to detail this guy. And just a very quick walkthrough of the Academy. So this is the main hub for Concept Art Academy. We are enrolling for our winter session right now. It starts in about 2 weeks on November 6th. So definitely jump in if you are considering this. How this works is it's a 12-week session with weekly live classes at this time on Thursdays at 11 a.m. Central. And it's broken up into a design module where we talk about a lot of this stuff that we've done today, but we go into a lot of depth on those shape design principles, which is one of the biggest like keys to the kingdom that I can possibly help an artist with is really drilling those and weaving them into a very professional process. Concept Art Academy is very industry focused. It's designed for artists who are trying to like signal professionalism in their portfolios. That's that's the biggest like lens that we view everything through here. So, how to make your work seem authentically valuable. I talk about value a lot. Like this is cool, but how do we make it solve a problem for your art director? How do we make it advance the project? I think that is one of the best ways an artist can distinguish themselves from, the ocean of ArtStation portfolios out there, is to take your work from what I had a, I had a portfolio full of what I now think of as pretty nonsense. Art that I painted and I loved every pixel of it, but it was utterly designless and not really helping anybody's project. How to go from that to work that is authentically helpful to the industry. And also, once we're doing that, how to paint and render in the second half of the curriculum, which is the painting module. How to do those eye-catching portfolio pieces, because as much as sketches and line art and just showing that problem solving, that's probably what gets you hired. We still need eye-catching stuff is kind of the lure, the thing to look cool at a thumbnail to kind of get people interested. And it's just fun. I mean, I love painting and rendering things that look realistic and stylish and beautiful. Like I learned to render before I learned to design, which is why those portfolios went nowhere. But it still feels like kind of my oldest friend here. So I have a lot to teach about that, how to draw and paint pretty much anything. This is always a big favorite of the artists in the program is the Concept Art Academy exercise library on how to paint anything. Pretty much. I've added to this occasionally, just anytime there is something we don't necessarily have covered. I add an exercise on how to paint tech and machinery or special effects or anything. So that's how this is broken up. And just before I jump back to the drawing, I just want to invite anybody who's really considering this to reach out to me personally with that office at digitalpaintingstudio.com, and I will get back to you. I'll make a video for you. Like I, we keep class sizes small. There's a lot of individual attention, and I want everybody to feel that. If you are taking a look at this, just email me and I'll answer any questions you might have. And I'm also definitely going to pause for questions about the Academy at the end of the stream. But my best advice is if you're thinking about it, I want to make sure everybody knows what they're getting and what's expected of the artists in the program, just to make sure it's a good fit. I take this really seriously. It's a lot of trust that I'm asking of the artists in the program, and I think anybody with us today who's currently in or an alum would back me up on that, that I am sincere in my desire to help you guys reach your art goals, whatever they are. Cool. Let's keep going with this. And maybe while I'm doing a little bit of refined line art, if there are any questions, this will be a little more just sort of mindless.
Yeah, we've actually got one related to the Academy.
Okay.
Someone says, I have recently completed the CG Spectrum beginner drawing course, so very much at the beginning of my journey. Would you say there is more benefit in going through the Concept Art Academy once more intermediate, or is it appropriate for beginners?
Great question. We have a really wide range of experience levels in every class, and it's not like it all only for experts or it's not gated. There's no real entry portfolio, you must be this experienced to ride or anything. Um, and I like it that way. I like having a variety of experience levels. We have professionals in most classes and already enrolled in this upcoming class. So I don't want that to be like intimidating. It's cool to learn from each other. When you enroll in the academy, you're in what we call a design house. It's sort of like Harry Potter. Um, Helix is the design house that we're enrolling currently. And it's this very nice community where we kind of support and lift each other up. Like it's a tight-knit little group, um, kind of working on the same stuff each week. So I think artists like having that difference in experience level makes that even more interesting because we're all learning from each other. And by the way, the more experienced artists are learning a lot from the less experienced artists too, because it's kind of like sometimes you need to be shaken out of your habits a little bit or see some new way to do things, or sometimes helping to teach something helps you to master it a little bit yourself. That's a really long answer to a simple question, but the only like benchmark I would set is if you are, a very, very beginner, like if you're still figuring out your digital painting app, or if you are just getting into like really fundamentals of art, that might, you might want to work on those a little bit before jumping into this because, we're not really doing very fundamental drawing exercises. We're getting right into the shape design stuff. So, to that artist, I would ask just send me like a sample of your work and I will get back to you. But I suspect strongly that you would do beautifully. Like I wouldn't I would be surprised if my advice is to kind of practice fundamentals more because I think this program can help anybody take a very fast step forward. So relative beginners are very welcome here, not simply industry veterans or artists who are almost professional. Like we have all different experience levels.
Someone's asking, could they combine it with a full-time job in school?
Yes, it's all designed to be very flexible because everybody in the program, for the most part, is an adult with some adulting to do of some kind. So it's all designed to be flexible. Classes are Thursdays at 11 a.m. And if you can attend, that's awesome, but it's actually not a deal breaker if you cannot. Every class is recorded, and the personal attention that you'll be getting from me just very regularly, sometimes daily, but at least several times a week, you'll get individual feedback from me. That's where I think the real growth comes from. And that can happen anytime that fits your schedule. So if you have school, if you have a full-time job, this can still work. Um, what I would say is we ask, or I'd say the benchmark is around 5 hours of work per week for each artist. So take a look at how your week shakes out. If you can see 5 hours to carve out to devote to something like this, then you should be fine. Some artists, you know, go beyond that. We're going to have overachievers in every class who just want to do every single demo project, and that's awesome. But you can get every bit of growth and benefit out of this with 5 hours a week. So, a chunk of time on your weekend, breaking it up into a couple of sessions over the work week, or just, carving out that hour before or after work each day, and you should be good to go. Cool. All right, I'm getting quite into the detail weeds at this point, which I mean, I'm sort of like breaking my own rules of this, but I think hopefully the beginning parts of this were, I don't know, I think that's the main value of this. But let's not kid ourselves. Like doing the refined polished stuff is really cool too. So now that we've eaten our vegetables, let's do the payoff stuff, right? Let's talk about that a little bit because I have almost entirely changed the way I do line art in the past year, and I love it. And I, even if this is not for you, I think everybody should have this as an option, which is essentially just ultra low flow brush. Um, this brush is this like diamond shape that comes with the DPS brush pack, but this works perfectly well with just standard circle. But what's really nice about this is it's sort of like drawing with a pencil that's getting a little dull, like it's time to sharpen this one. And even at the very start of this stream, those first little exploration lines that I was making, they're so impermanent and just barely there. It's like a pencil. It's like you're loosely just finding your way through something. And I really like that. And even later in the process, when I start getting into like shading, right? Like trying to define some of these little planes and I don't know, some jaw muscles or wrinkles. I'm still using really low flow and I'm actually down at 10% opacity. So it's like we are shading with a pencil. And if I want to kind of sharpen the, imaginary pencil, that's when I'm like committing some lines or making lines that I want to really read boldly as form. And I just think the blending of those two, the like kind of gauzy softness of the low flow dull pencil with this sharper, like committing lines. Um, I really like that look very much, and it's an easy way to make lines look refined. So try that. Just super low flow to get a design started, and then we can kind of once we're a little more sure about things, or if you even want to do this, that's when we can turn flow up a little bit and start doing some little detail lines. Super liberating and just I don't know, it's like the best of both worlds. You can be descriptive, but you're not committed to anything, and it just feels very um, organic. I love drawing people this way too. It's kind of a nice way to not have to make every little line that would define, a cheekbone or some gentle plane. You don't want to just put some ink line across the face or it will start looking weird and over described. But if we kind of shade, if we combined lines with a little bit of, you know, light pencil type treatment, it starts feeling like it's the best of both worlds. So really recommended, even if you have a line art style that you really like, this can be a cool new tool for the kit. I'm also like erasing through these a little bit. That's a cool way to imply wrinkles, is just to kind of, run over this dome head form with an erase line, and it sort of looks like the skin behind the head is starting to bunch up a little bit. So then I'll start leaning into that more and more. Um, if I'm like erasing away the shading near the margin, there's a lot of texture information there, right? Suddenly it looks like scales sort of rounding out to the top. So cool. So anyway, just as much as this is about not over detailing or getting too attached to your lines, I also, let's learn how to over detail and get too attached to our lines because it's fun.
We've got a question from a grade 12 student wondering, they dream of becoming a concept artist and want to know if art school is really worth it or if mentorship and focus training are a better route.
That is such a good question. Um, all right. So just to like kind of back up, put my money where my mouth is. I have an 11-year-old who is a very good artist, and I would imagine art school is in his future. And my plan is probably, if that's what he wants to do, that's probably what I'm gonna, that is what I will recommend for him. So, I wouldn't tell any other, young artist to do something different than I would recommend for myself or my family. So there's a lot about art school that is really awesome. Just you're going to have a lot of accountability. You're going to have a lot of facilities and equipment and just professional experience with the faculty. And I'm saying all this without knowing where you're going or anything about the program. But like in general, I think that is where art school remains a a really cool value. Um, the problem is that it just keeps getting so much more and more disproportionately expensive that it is really hard. You certainly have to wonder, you know, if you spend tens of thousands on anything, is that return on investment going to be there? And that is the question that I just can't possibly answer for you. Like I this is a very unsatisfying answer, but like you can have success in either route. I guess I'd put it that way. Art school is amazing as an experience on just like a phase of your life. Like I went to graduate school for medical illustration and I loved it. Like it was extraordinary. So it's hard for me to tell anybody like don't go to art school, it's a waste of your time. It's not. It's awesome. The question is like, how much is this, going to cost you in terms of not just tuition, but years? And if you kind of fast forward to the other side of that, is it, does it look like it was worth it once you reach the other side? The other great thing that art school can help with, like another great selling point, is just networking, right? Like the art school you're looking at might guarantee job placement or something like that. So I would ask a lot of those critical questions of any school that you're considering is what does postgraduate life look like? And to turn that spotlight right back on myself, what does postgraduate life look like for my mentorship? Does everybody immediately get a job? And I want to be like super transparent with everybody that art school or mentorship, this is a really competitive world. And just, if it was easy, anybody who kind of liked to draw would probably choose to spend their days doing that professionally, right? So there's just always going to be a mismatch between the available jobs and the available artists who want those jobs. And that's just kind of baked in. Um, and I wish I could say that everybody gets hired at Blizzard the day after Concept Art Academy, but it is since we do not heavily gatekeep for admission, artists even after the 12 weeks who were pretty beginner to start still have work to do. Now, what I can promise absolutely to anybody who enrolls is that the journey will be cut by years. Like it will take years off of the journey from where you are to where you want to be. I can say that without a doubt. Regardless of where you are, you will be significantly closer, and I can help you take some giant shortcuts to things that would have been really hard to figure out on your own, or even at art school, which is not to just end with a dunk on art school, but there are some out there. a thing I hear frequently, and I'm very much patting myself on the back here. I hear often that I learned more from that lecture than I learned in 4 years of my game art degree. Like, thank you, finally. And that is how I try to teach, is just sort of cutting a lot of the I don't know, the like boring academia out of it and just kind of say, let's check your workout. Let's identify where the soft spots are. And I just tend to like have an exercise or a trick or a philosophy change or just something that gets you on a path to success. And I can do that for any artist. So, oh man, that was such a simple question, and suddenly 15 minutes have elapsed. But that is a really a really important question, and I hope that gives you and your family some stuff to consider. And again, like please use that email address if I can help with that further. Great question.
Okay, we've got a couple more.
Cool.
We've got a student about to start a game school who admits they get distracted easily and struggle with speed. How can artists learn to focus and build consistent habits, especially when they're starting out?
Awesome. So speed comes from a few places. Like, first of all, just the repetition of your hand practicing something a lot. You're going to be able to do it faster, like shuffling cards or shucking oysters or whatever. So there's that. Just repetition will lead to some increase in speed. The biggest increase in speed, and where I think professionalism starts seeping in, is not just with what your hand's doing, but the decisions that you made. Design is kind of a million different forks in the road, and painting is too, actually. Like, should I do this? There's a lot to calculate. And experience, but also having a professional workflow, which is I have got this PDF checklist for artists in the program to just do A, B, C, D, and E. Start here, go through these in steps, and the more you drill through that, the more you just kind of get to the next good decision quickly. And I think that's kind of what it's all about, is sort of getting your brain out of the way and getting so comfortable with all of this that it kind of just becomes automatic, that you are not belaboring every image so much. You're not being pixel perfect or rendering things to death. That's another killer that kind of makes our work look less experienced, which is very counterintuitive, is, work that looks over rendered. The more we start to kind of let go of the preciousness of our own work, the more it looks like this is an artist who just does this every day. And kind of funny, it sort of looks like they don't especially care about it. This looks like just another throwaway bit of brilliance that I just, conjured out of thin air. Um, so having a professional workflow, and as unfun as the answer is, repetition, those I think increase the speed and just make the decisions flow a lot more easily. And I think that's when all of that starts feeling like way, way better. Good question though.
Okay, another
Celine,
one.
yeah, maybe
Yeah.
one or two more, I guess. I'm kind of getting to over rendering this to death. So probably getting to a good stop point.
Okay, yeah, I think one more is good. This one's also related to timing.
Yeah.
A viewer's wondering, should artists build speed through time design drills or by deeply training each drawing element until it becomes second nature?
What an awesome question. And I actually think the answer is sort of both. Which that's the theme of the day. All right. Speed paintings or speed drawings, I used to think of them as kind of pointless. Like, okay, that's cool. You can paint fast, but it's like, is that like a parlor trick? Like, That's good for you and your business efficiency. But um, what I now understand is it's good because it sets a limit, and that's kind of the point today too. Is not letting yourself get drawn into perfectionism and making every mark precious. Setting a timer where, whether I like this drawing or not, at the end of 10 minutes or 5 minutes, it's over. That weirdly forces you to be really loose and free. Your elbow comes up and you start making really expressive things. And I think there's a lot of value in that. That's a lot like the stretchy shake up step. I think a lot of that kind of stuff can come from those speed painting exercises. But on the flip side of that, there of course is a lot of benefit, and I think the ultimate higher levels of mastery of your own craft come from when we slow down and when we're really thinking through. Um, I love the word deliberate with design and painting. Just it looks like confidence. It looks like that artist wanted that little blob of that color and that shape right on that forehead highlight or right on that tooth or scale pattern. That kind of confidence and deliberateness, I think, has to slow down. Like you really need to have just spent the hours with you and your paintings to kind of know what that next good decision is. And that's another thing where feedback and input can really speed that process along. Like trying to do that in a vacuum where you're just never quite sure about anything. That is one of my main regrets is how long I tried to just sort of figure concept art out without seeking out, community or help or professional feedback. I was just kind of, I don't know, I guess this is cool, and I never really knew. So, both is the answer. I think they both have a lot of merit and both kind of have a place in your process and your practice. Cool. Maybe one more, and I'm running out of little like spikes and scales to add.
Okay, this one is a technical question.
All right. I love
Uh,
technical questions.
Someone would love to hear what resolution, bit size, DPI, etc. use for concepting and painting files.
Absolutely. This is 4K. So this document is 16 by 9 at 300 pixels per inch. So that's what I do most of the time. If you are doing something for print, that's the only time when you might need things to go bigger. So if this lizard was going to be on a billboard or something, then I would certainly, want those specifications from my client. But for just about anything that is going to be in a web portfolio or, any kind of screen as the final presentation, I rarely have much use for anything bigger than this. I, paint a lot of stuff for YouTube, and this, is about the highest resolution that will be seen on YouTube. So that's usually about where I cap it. But totally good question, and that is a simple one.
Can one
Always good to
more?
have more
One
more
more?
resolution than you need. But yeah, Celine.
Sorry, it's like this is the last one, I promise.
Okay, no, this is great.
Um, what are some of the core topics the program will include?
Yeah, so it's a lot. It is starts with shape design. So all of that stuff that lets us, take what would be kind of a normal lizard and bend it into something that feels dynamic and harmonious with its shape relationships. This is kind of, for lack of a better word, how to give stuff a designy look, which I mean, it's a nonsense word, but it sort of makes sense, right? It's kind of that, ooh, professionalism kind of look. There's sort of a formula to how to access that. And that's where we start. And I love that because it's usually like the fastest, just light bulb switching on for most of our artists is how quick their stuff starts looking a lot better if we just kind of look at it through that lens. So there's that. There's a lot of industry focus on how to design stuff that is genuinely valuable to those hiring artists. And even if your goal is not a career, this is all the stuff that makes your work, you know, perform well. It gives you the looks that you want your art to have in most settings. Um, it's kind of learning how to apply all that to any topic, which is really empowering, right? Shape design principles applied to a monster head just the same as they apply to a spaceship or a castle or a character. And we have projects, quite a few projects for each subject. So it's all universal. So it's designed to feel like you're ready for any challenge you're likely to encounter after just the first half of the course. And then for the second half, we get into painting, how to like take this lizard and render it so that he looks believable and looks trying to find an example of this. There we go. So that he looks, you know, alive and like his head is made out of shell and his teeth are all made of bone and he has bad breath and nasty, like inflamed eye sockets, like all of that stuff to make your work look real and stylish and, you know, cool factor. So there's that. And then finally, we tie all of it together with portfolio building. Because by the time we're in the painting module, which is where my current session is, we are building portfolio pieces. We're kind of designing a campaign of projects all within a single like game world or movie or something. We're kind of designing an IP and we're designing stuff within that so that it looks like your work is all cohesive, like it's already hired. Because we're trying to signal professionalism and experience even for artists who have not yet worked professionally. It's kind of the answer to that catch 22 of everybody's looking to hire experienced artists. Most of them have it as a requirement. But how does anybody ever gain professional experience if you can't get hired, right? And the answer is we just have to make a portfolio that is indistinguishable from a professional portfolio. And that's what a lot of the second half of the session and beyond is meant to address. So, the point I'll close with is even after 12 weeks, after the November through the holidays session is over, you still have access to me and to the curriculum, to the community well beyond that. You have a full year and beyond access to, like, you know, message me anytime if you need something. And I say and beyond because if that year comes and goes and you still need something from me, I am very much here for the artists in this community. And anything you ever need, a letter of recommendation, help negotiating a first job offer. I love that. I love when one of our graduates is kind of in the professional world and comes back for advice. Like, I love that. So there is all of the support and accountability and resources and feedback and guidance that you need to get really good at whatever it is your art goals, you know, are. I can help you get there a lot faster, I can say with full confidence. But again, final thing before we'll say goodbye is just if you have any questions for me personally about the program, or if you're kind of not sure about something on the fence, just send me an email. I think that's the easiest way is for us to just kind of interact directly, and I'll answer any questions you have. Cool. We'll call it there, but guys, thanks for hanging out today, and I hope that was interesting. This is kind of a cool lizard, but remember, don't polish those lines too early, like I did. What we do with the loose things, the way we shake things up and blow things up without being too precious with our lines, is where the like real, I didn't know I could design that. That's where that magic, unexpected thing happens, and I love that. If you're at Lightbox, I hope we bump into each other. But otherwise, have a great day. Thanks for hanging out, and see you next time.